Can I be honest with you for a second? I have no idea what I actually want. I think that is something that a lot of people that are hungry for influence, want to make a mark and impact on the world, are afraid to say. But I have known so many entrepreneurs. I've known a lot of people that have made money. I have a friend that just had a company sell. He had got a $5 million payout, and he's worth, with his real estate fund, pretty close to $1 billion. He's going through stuff like this. I have another friend who's taking home a couple $1 million a year. He's going through something like this. I've talked to other influencers that have millions of subscribers, and they go through this. I've personally started multiple businesses. One of those businesses has collected over 15 million. We just started a new business in November. It's already doing over 300 grand a month. It's probably gonna grow even more. And at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't really matter. I still have been spiraling internally, and I met with someone the other day that has sold 30 million books and has been invited to be with, Oprah and Dr. Phil and Ellen DeGeneres and different people that are big names. And he was somebody that I reached out to because he is not owned at all by the need for influencer money. I asked him, I was like, what if you lost it all? He's like, I wouldn't care, honestly. And I was like, man, how is that? And he's like, because I had my identity by the time I was 50. But I've been on this, I guess, call it a journey or a process the last 12 months, trying to figure out what I really want at my core. And I'm making this video, I guess, because I get a lot of messages. I have one of my communities that I influence with is like an entrepreneurial community, faith-based entrepreneurship community. And people are trying to get to this place of freedom with income, opportunity. I feel like right now, this day and age, people in their 20s, 30s, we're kind of sold this idea that it's really important to do what you're passionate about, to go after your dreams, to really pursue things. And I think what's the landscape of what's given to us is try and make it on social media. It's like, and you're going, oh yeah, well, Spencer, you're doing the same thing on YouTube. Yeah, to a degree, honestly, I have to face that part of myself. I'm trying. There's been moments I've made videos where I'm like, I don't feel good about myself because it got this many views, or I feel good about myself because it got this many views. And I'm like, whoa, I never wanted that icky stuff to get on me, and it has. And so I want to be honest about some of those things, and I want to walk you through, I guess, some of my vulnerable process and be real with you. But I feel like, again, in this day and age, to go back to what I was saying, we're kind of sold this idea to make it an influence, to make lots of money, to be an entrepreneur. I can't tell you how many people have told me they're entrepreneurs and they have sold like 3 things, or like they started a photography business or something. And I'm like, okay, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you're a small business owner. Entrepreneurs are really looking at markets and solving big problems within market trends. I think what it illustrates to me, and I've said this about myself too as an entrepreneur, I called myself an entrepreneur. We're looking for identity, and it feels good to say I'm an entrepreneur. It feels good to say I have this many followers. It feels good to say I've made this much money. But at the end of the day, is that really what's going to satisfy us? I don't think so. I'm at this point where I don't feel satisfied, and I have a lot of the things. I have friends over at our house who are like, wow, your home is beautiful, and it feels good in the moment. I can take that as a drink. Like it's like a swig of validation, right? It can medicate me in a moment, if I'm being honest. And I could say something awesome on stage and have a client or someone walk up to me after a coaching call, be like, dude, that changed my whole life. Or I can look at reviews on our podcast and be like, these guys are the best ever, talking about me and my wife with the podcast. And it does something for me. But that's usually when I don't know who I am and what I want, that those feel like medicating substances. But I'm concerned that our society as a whole is kind of creating those scenarios, that we feel empty and void inside of ourselves, and we're waiting for the world around us to validate our value and our worth. I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about it for my own life. I've been feeling like, what would it look like to be truly joyful and not need anything? I just have to share the story, but the person I was referencing that sold all the books that I met with, his name's Paul Young. He wrote The Shack, life-changing book. If you haven't read that or seen the movie, I think it's on Netflix, or you can find it, where you can stream it. It's incredible. It's life-changing. He actually never intended on publishing that book for the public. He never intended on a movie being made for it. He actually gave that published book to his kids, his family, one Christmas when he didn't have any money to purchase gifts for them. And his wife asked him, Paul, you have a beautiful way of articulating, can you give a gift to our children, our family, of a way that you process and help us to understand what the last 10 years of your healing journey has looked like. And so he wrote the check, and he printed out 15 copies at a Kinko's because he got a discount on the copies. And then, you know, it was crazy. Like, it obviously took off, blew up. It sold so many copies, and he made a lot of money and got a lot of influence. One thing he said to me when I was in a conversation with him is just asking about like if it has affection over him. He's like, no. He said he was on a walk with God, just asking him questions, and it was at a time where he had made a bunch of terrible financial decisions, and he was about to call some friends that could write a check. Any one of them could have written a check and gotten him out of that financial situation he was in. He was out on a walk, and he was like, God, what am I supposed to do? You know, he was about to lose his house, all of his belongings, cars, everything. They were gonna have to move, and they would have been in massive debt. He's like, God, what am I supposed to do? And God says, you will lie, cheat, and steal, Paul, and do whatever it takes to not hit rock bottom in your finances. And you are so terrified of financial insecurity, but you won't let me do what I want to do in your heart because of this. And he felt so convicted that he called his friends, the ones that could write checks. He basically told them the situation. He said, I cannot let you rescue me from this situation. If you do, I truly believe you'll be stopping the Lord's hand in my life with something he wants to do. Within a month, he had to put his home on the market at auction, sold it for pennies on the dollar just to get out of a bunch of debt, lost the cars were taken, creditors took all their stuff. They had to move to a tiny 900 square foot spot in the mountains, like in the middle of nowhere. And he still had 4 out of his 6 kids living at home. And he had to get 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And he was 49 years old. Like, imagine, like, I think about how much I feel like a failure on a daily basis at times. I'm 33 and I'm putting myself in his situation, how much that would trigger me into feeling like, man, I'm nothing. Is this where my life is? Because I have all these expectations on myself for outcomes I needed to have hit by that time. And he said it was just the craziest thing though. I was working 3 jobs. You know, his wife Kim was working, had to go back to work at the school that she was working at. And she came home one day and he finished work one day and they came home and he's like, and all of a sudden joy dropped in our home and we had nothing. He said he couldn't even afford Christmas presents for his kids. He said, my kids to this day, with all the things they have, this custom built house they built from scratch, you know, in Portland, he was like, we have all these things, but my kids will still say those were some of the fondest memories of their lives when we had nothing. And he said, if we lost everything tomorrow, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't do anything for me because the identity stuff was in place before it came. And that really makes me think about the scripture, seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added. I don't feel like, if I'm being honest with myself, I've done that all the time. I think honestly, for all of us, if we can be honest with ourselves and face ourselves, our insecurities, our questions, our scarcity, our lack of provision. I remember when I originally decided to get into learning sales and business, it was at a time that God's voice turned off in my life. I stopped hearing him, feeling him. I stopped feeling empathy, compassion for people. I stopped feeling connected to God. And I was coming out of making $800 a month from raising support for doing ministry. I just remember going, I'm never going to be poor again. I had this vision and dream for my family. Like I wanted to be able to take care of them, have a great home, build this life with opportunities and have the ability to leverage my income to have time at home with my kids and be able to control things. You know, ultimately I really wanted control and I felt out of control. And so I kind of made a vow, I'm never going to be poor again. And that's what led me on a journey. And I see how much I lost in the process. I lost connection to some of my tenderness at times. I lost connection to some of the fun aspects that made me, Spencer, me. I lost some of those things of like doing things because I want to that don't have any inherent transactional value. I got so set on hitting this destination that I lost sight of who I was in the process. And I think I justified it at times. Now, am I saying entrepreneurship is wrong? No, by no means. But I think the way we can go into it, like when Jesus says it's easier for a camel to enter the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven. I don't think he's talking about like, oh, you're going to go to hell if you worship these things and struggle with them. I think he's highlighting that it's actually difficult to experience the salvation, that feeling you get of perfect peace, that thing you find in perfect surrender, peace, joy, you know, like that true joy. Like one of my tattoos, it's in the Greek, it's kara, which is, it's a joy that comes by grace is from Psalm 16:11 in the Septuagint, which is the Greek version of the Old Testament. It says, in his presence is fullness of joy. That word joy is a joy you can't create, which is so funny because I've lived under the illusion of control for so many years, believing I can create things in my life. I can make them happen. But almost every time I've lived by that delusion, I lose a little bit more magic in my life. When I say magic, I mean I lose that whimsy wonder of not being able to take credit for great things that happen. The person that's in the room that feels like they can control everything, knows everything, they're often not the happy person in the room. The people that are like wide-eyed and like starry-eyed and are like, man, everything that happens is great and I don't know why, but I'm just thankful. Those are the people that have the most joy in their hearts. And they're usually people that are not addicted to control. They are under no delusion that they are in control. Life is a gift, moment by moment, it's a gift. They live in the grace in the present. They live in the grace for today. That's one thing I want to practice and learn. It's a journey that I'm on right now. How can I, yes, understand that there's a wisdom to sowing and reaping. There's a wisdom to hard work, and it's actually something that we're called to. Like even Paul says in the New Testament, if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an unbeliever. If you guys aren't Christians and you're watching this video right now, I'm sorry to like just be spitting out scriptures, but these are things that I live by. And I personally have a relationship with God and I'm confronting a lot of things in my life right now. And whether or not you believe the things I'm saying, you can admit that there are things that grip our souls that are not in our heart's best interest and our identity's best interest. And I want to break the silence on it. I want to actually start being a little bit more authentic and real that riches and wealth won't save you. And now I'm by no means ultra wealthy. Okay. But our house is amazing and epic here in Maui. It's probably a $3.5 million house now. I think it's what we figured out with appraisers. So we got quite a bit of equity, millions in equity there. We have multiple businesses I'm partners in, great income. We have things. We have a boat, the cars we want, like all these things. And I'm not saying that to brag or boast. Like, I just want you to hear my heart in this. I'm sharing those things to tell you that they're not satisfying. When you are waiting for the next thing to satisfy you, to fill you, that's actually a terrible place to be in, because that means until you get the thing, you're in a level of suffering. I don't want people to live under this delusion that entrepreneurship will save you. I had a friend the other day I was talking to, and he's like so down on himself, in so much pain about where he's at in his life that he hasn't accomplished things. And you might be watching this video right now, and I have so much compassion for you. Every time we talk and he mentions these sources of pain, he's like, I just feel like I would have been so much further by now. I feel like I just want to reach out and tell him, you don't necessarily need these things to be happy, and you won't be happy when you get these things. These things are all meant to be gifts added, not something that you desperately require to be okay, to be enough, to be validated, to be happy. It's kind of like that saying, it's so stupid, like don't drink to feel better, drink to feel even better. It's like, don't use drinking alcohol as a source of medication if you're sad. So if you're sad, don't go out and drink and do that. It's like, it's going to quickly become a medication. But if you feel good, and it's like a source of extra enjoyment, I'm like, that's kind of one of those things that I'm like, that's great, cool. It's got to be one of those things where even marriage is not something that's going to satisfy you. Friendship and community, not going to be the thing that satisfies you. Like even the people that say like, it's not about money, it's about your family. Not even that. No, there has to be a place within ourselves that we come to that I'm able to fully accept and love myself. And we don't have the ability to do that alone. This is why I've needed God so much in my life, is I've needed someone to hold up a mirror to me that was so much better than the mirror I had. My mirror told me, Spencer, you're worthless until you do this. Spencer, you're not enough until you do this. Spencer, you're ugly until you change your bodily appearance. You're rejectable until you change the way you entertain. You are not lovable and worthy of a good wife unless you can provide a lot for them. It's like all these different things. It's like so much conditional love in the mirror that I held against myself. And then I grabbed the mirror that Jesus had for me, he was able to show me I'm so much better than anything I've ever experienced or done. He was like, I'm here to show you your true identity, not based on your works, not based on your failures or your success, but based on what I tell you and who I tell you you are. And I say that in your worst, you're lovable. Now, that was something that started to change me from the inside out. But for some reason, it's been a temptation in my life to enter back into this conditional love contract with myself. I will not love you, Spencer, or accept you until you do X, Y, and Z. And we do that all the time with ourselves. That's what society tells us to do. Why? Because society wants to create a system of rewards and punishment to make sure that we're controlled so that we're not hurting people. And it's externally driven. So we're like, the goal of all those different rules and those types of modes are because there's no trust in a source of love that can actually live in us and transform us from the inside out. And that is not the world I live in. It's not the world I choose to live in. It's actually not the world that I believe is going to create the best society that's ever existed. I believe, honestly, learning to partner with the love that God has for me is going to be the most life-changing. The seasons where I can point to where that I felt the most peace, the most joy, the most surrendered times of my life. And I haven't felt that. It's a journey I'm on right now. How can I be a husband surrendered to God? How can I be a father surrendered to God, an entrepreneur, a leader? Because I don't also want to trigger into just throwing everything out because of pain I'm feeling. But I am asking these questions of how do I do this not as an orphan, not as someone that is deeply alone, the self-made man, that we honestly, it's like if you take credit for all your successes, then the failures will crush you. That's something that is so important to recognize. It's like, what if I was already great and I put my hand to work? And the work that I did doesn't validate or communicate that I'm great, but I'm already great. Whether or not I have the work, I can bring that greatness to the table. What if I was functioning from identity and not for it? And to have identity, I first need to know I'm loved. And that's where we get our source of identity, is from the person of love, who is God. And the person that represents that God is love is Jesus, because he gave his life for us. In that, while we were still sinners, while we were at our worst, he still gave his life for us. That's something I want to change and transform me. I want to show up in my work differently. I want to show up in the way I do things differently. Now, how does this translate into the way I'm doing business, influence, YouTubing, podcasts? Well, one, I'm learning to not care about the numbers I see underneath the video. Oh, there's only a few views on here. I must have been really terrible at making this content. No. Actually, the 40 people that saw this, I hope it was helpful for them. I hope it was actually life-changing. The reason I'm making this video here right now like this is because I'm like, what if I stopped doing this for my own ego? Like, even if I wasn't doing it all for ego, it's like maybe there's like small amounts. What if I surrendered my ego here? And I made this content out of my heart. What if my son was gonna watch every one of these videos, my children? And this could be a documentation process where I let them know things that I've gone through, things I want them to know. Like, what if I could tell my children right now, money won't satisfy you. You don't have to live with poverty mindsets. You can live in abundance, but money won't satisfy. What if I could tell them that right now in this video? They see it someday. 10, 15, 20 years from now. That's the kind of content I want to make. That's what I want to live my life doing. And I want to be able to turn on the camera and turn it off and still be me every time. I want to be truly authentically me. That's my goal in this season. I want to do that in business. And that does mean like growing in skills, growing in perspectives and mindsets and beliefs, yes. But I do want to function from a place of knowing I am already enough as a man. Now, I don't know how much of this lands with you if you're watching this video still, but my heart in sharing all of this is that you know that wherever you're at, if you're below my income level, having my income level won't satisfy you. If you're below my influence level, it's not going to satisfy you. Maybe you're above, but you still probably know that deep in your heart of hearts. You know, having the nice things, the boat, the cars, the house, it's not going to satisfy you. Living in Hawaii, it's not going to satisfy you. We're even considering moving. Why? Because we have pain around community and where we live. I just want to put to rest and put to death that your fantasy will save you. It won't. I really want to hear from you guys in the comments. I hate making videos and just hearing nothing back. It's not fun. Like, not that I need your validation and support to feel good about myself, but really just because I want this to be a two-way dialogue. So if you could do me a favor and like comment below this, like let me know, what is this stirring up in you? What things are coming up in you? What does this cause you to face any certain things? Are there any areas where you can be vulnerable below in the comments? Like, wow, this is actually an area I'm struggling. Oh wait, this really resonated with me. Being seen, being authentic. Actually, they did a test in Spain. It's called the Spain study. And they tested brain waves. And they were like, what brings the most pleasure responses in the brain that someone can feel? And they tested all these different things. Love when someone is loved, affirmed, all those different things. You know what tested the highest than anything else? When someone was authentic. They shared exactly where they were at. And that's pretty crazy. Authenticity tests higher than love. I want you just to take some time to do that. If you like this channel, you want more videos like this, you can subscribe. I legitimately hope this blesses you and hope to see you on more videos and read your comments and get to connect with you guys. Put some questions in there if you want me to talk about some more stuff. If you guys have questions about life, business, anything like that, and I'll see you on the next video.